Before we dive into the depths of darkness and this chilling tale, if you enjoy these mysterious journeys, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to join the Night Tales family. Also, if you have your own unexplained stories, share them with us in the comments. Now, if you're ready, let's begin. I don't actually say it all started the day the yellow envelope entered the house. It all began with that first dark thought where I mistook violating a person's will for love. That day, I realized how love disables human logic and how heavy the price of wanting the impossible truly is. Now, when I look in the mirror, the face I see is mine, but the shadow standing behind me no longer belongs to the man I loved. My acquaintance with Mert went back to our university years, those reckless days of youth. Back then, I was the popular, vibrant girl, with everyone revolving around her. Mert, on the other hand, was a quiet, subtle character who expressed his love for me at every opportunity. It was too insignificant to be even just a friend. For 4 long years, he chased me. While I walked hand in hand with the school's most popular boys on campus, he would fold letters written to me. In the secluded corners of the library letters he could never give, he would leave anonymous flowers at my door on my birthdays. He knew better than I did which flowers I loved, which coffee I drank, and which sentence of which author made me cry. During exam weeks, while I was out partying, he would take notes from me and thrust them into my hand at the crack of dawn, saying, "Elif, these are for you." At the time, it felt like a kind of service. I didn't love his devotion. On the contrary, it irritated me. One day, Elif, he would always say, in that trembling, excited voice, "One day, you will only look at me. When that day comes, you will be the happiest woman in the world, because no one can love you as much as I do." I would only smile at him with pity, sometimes with contempt. Mert was not my equal, or so I thought in my prideful ears. When graduation day came, I didn't even say goodbye. Life tossed me into the chaos of Istanbul, the ruthlessness of the business world, and one failed relationship after another. I was cheated on, abandoned, and mentally battered. 7 years passed. At the end of those 7 years, we crossed paths one day in a bookstore in Kadıköy. Mert had changed. That slumped-shouldered, bespectacled boy was gone. In his place was a successful man with newfound confidence and a sharp gaze. The moment I saw him, I felt a strange ache in my heart. Perhaps, after being beaten down by life, it was a desire to take refuge in that harbor of unconditional love. We started seeing each other. We drank coffee and reminisced about the old days. But something was off. The more I approached him, the more skillfully he maneuvered away. The man who had waited at my door for years now wouldn't answer my calls and gave short, formal replies to my messages hours later. When we met. His eyes weren't on me, but on the ticking of his watch. One evening, while sitting by the Moda seaside, I couldn't take it anymore and asked, "Mert, you chased me for all those years. Now I'm here. I'm by your side. But you're like ice. What changed?" Mert took a deep breath and looked out at the sea. "Elif," he said, his voice so soulless, "I loved you as a fantasy for 7 years. To me, you were an unreachable goddess. But looking at you now, you're just like everyone else. The spell is broken. There's only a void inside me for you. I'm sorry, but I'm not that old Mert anymore. I've grown cold toward you." At that moment, I felt the humiliation and rejection he had felt 7 years ago, down to my marrow. Those words pierced my heart like a dagger. I realized then that a person becomes a slave to everything they cannot possess. I had become Mert's slave. I wanted him back. No, not because I loved him, but because my ego was shattered and I wanted to make him kneel again. I had to turn him back into that lover at my door, by force if necessary. I cried for weeks. I couldn't sleep. I followed Mert's social media accounts second by second, checking who he was with and where. One night, while sitting in the house of an elderly auntie, I knew from the neighborhood. I brought it up. "Isn't there a way to bring back the one who left, auntie?" I asked. Through subs, the woman narrowed her eyes and whispered, "There is, my child, but every door has a key, and every key has a price. Are you ready to pay that price?" She sent me to the most desolate, sunless neighborhood of the city, to a woman called Mother Mary. The woman's house was a basement flat, where the walls were blackened by dampness, and a heavy smell of burning lingered. When I entered, the heaviness of the air took my breath away. "I just want him to love me," I said, trembling. "Love," she said, and laughed. Her voice was like the scraping of a tombstone. "We don't give love, Elif. We give binding. We give asil. Mert will come to you, but never forget, the person who comes won't just be the Mert, you know. We will place a Guardia in his body. That Guardia will bring him to you, Batin. We'll take something from him." I was terrified, but my ambition at that moment suppressed my fear. The woman placed a piece of leather before me. With a mixture of saffron and ink, she drew signs belonging to no language. She placed photos of Mert and a strand of my hair inside and sewed it tightly. "Put this under your pillow," she said. "For 40 days, every night, you will recite his name backwards in a numerical chant. On the 40th day, he will be at your door. But beware, never open the talisman. If you do, the seal will be broken, and the guardian will haunt you." When I brought the talisman home, my cat began to hiss as if possessed. The animal cowered in a corner, staring into the void as if someone were standing behind me. At midnight, I placed the talisman under my pillow and began those dark chants. In the first few nights, I saw shadowless entities in my dreams, holding rusty needles in the middle of a pitch-black sea. They were all whispering, "You promised. You promised." On the night of the 39th day, my bedroom door opened on its own. The wind blowing in was so cold I thought my blood would freeze. And on the morning of the 40th day, the doorbell rang. It was Mert. But the cold, distant Mert was gone, replaced by a man whose eyes burned as if with fire, breathless. "Elif, I couldn't stand it," he said, bursting in. "I waited at your door all night. How could I ever leave you? I'm a fool. Every second without you feels like my lungs are being torn out." I was drunk with victory. I had what I wanted. Mert had knelt. But the celebration didn't last long. A few days, after Mert moved in, the strangeness began. Mert was no longer the old Mert. He was never hungry. He would sit at the table, stare at an empty plate, but never take a single bite. His skin turned grayer by the day. The dark circles under his eyes deepened. The most terrifying part was his insomnia. Mert never slept. When I woke up in the middle of the night, I would find him standing by the bed in the peep. He would just stand there, watching me without breathing. "Mert, why aren't you sleeping, honey?" I would ask, and his voice came from so deep within. It was as if someone else was speaking from inside his ribcage. "I have to watch you, Elif. I have to protect the entrusted." One evening, while Mert was in the bathroom, I was startled by notifications on his phone. Mert's mother and friends had sent dozens of messages. "Mert, where are you? Why does your voice sound so strange? Why didn't you come to the funerariah who had died?" As I read the messages, I was filled with horror. Mert's best friend had died 3 days ago, but Mert don't even know. Or he did, but he didn't care. When I went into the phone's gallery, I had the shock of my life. Mert had taken thousands of photos, but they weren't of us. They were photos of the dark corners of the house. Empty walls, ceiling corners, behind doors, and under every photo were small notes. They are here. They are watching me. Don't tell Elif. Just then, the bathroom door opened. Mert walked out. He only had a towel on. When his back was turned to me, I covered my mouth to stifle a scream at what I saw. On Mert's back, between his shoulder blades, something was moving just beneath the skin. Not like a worm, no. It was as if small, frail hands trapped inside were trying to tear the skin, their fingerprints visible from the outside. What are you looking at, my love? Mert said, turning slowly. His face, oh my God, his face had sagged like a mask. His pupils had grown so large that the whites of his eyes had completely disappeared. You are not. Mert, I said, backing away. Mert, or whatever it was, took a step toward me. The sound of his bones, dot grinding against each other, echoed through the room. I am Mert. Elif. I am the Mert you wanted. But Mert's soul turned out to be too weak. When the guardian entered, Mert got scared and cowered in a corner. Now, there is only me. I am your love. I am your seal. That night, the house turned into a hell. I tried to flee, but all the doors seemed sealed from the inside, not the outside. The lights went out. In the darkness, I could hear Mert's voice, but it was like thousands of people whispering at once. You summoned us! The entity screamed. Mert's body seemed suspended in the air, his joints twisting backward. When you sold that talisman, when you recited those chants, you promised us. Ebadi.so, we took Mert. Now it's your turn. We will merge with you. A pitch-black liquid began to seep from the walls of the house. The liquid had the same heavy smell as a sealed talisman, rotted meat, and old grave soil. While that entity spoke through Mert's mouth, tears streamed from Mert's real eyes. He was trapped inside his own body, watching what was happening but unable to intervene. The entity grabbed my throat with Mert's hands. His hands were ice-cold, like death itself. Look at me, Elif, he rasped. Isn't this the passion you wanted? A lover who never leaves. Here I am. At that moment, I remembered the talisman under my pillow. Mother Mary's warning rang in my ears. If you open it, the seal will be broken. With the last of my strength, I ran to the bedroom. The entity followed, walking on the walls. Like a spider, I threw the pillow and found that small leather case. As Mert saw the entity's claws dug into my back, I tore that leather apart with my teeth. From inside, only a handful of ash and a dried tongue fell out, along with Mert's photo. In the photo, Mert's eyes had been gouged out. The moment the talisman was shredded, a deafening scream erupted in the house. Mert's body collapsed to the floor. When the police broke down the door the next morning, they found Mert and me unconscious. Mert stayed in intensive care for weeks. Doctors called it an unexplained nervous breakdown. But I know the truth. Mert recovered, or so we think. But since that day, Mert has never spoken again. His eyes are always looking far away. Sometimes when I wake up at night, I see him standing by the bed again, staring into the void. I shredded the talisman, but the seal wasn't completely removed. Whether that guardian left Mert's body or hid deeper inside, I'm not sure. I went back to Mother Mary's neighborhood, but neither that house nor that street existed. People said such. A woman had never lived there. Now we are in the same house with Mert. He kisses me every morning, prepares my breakfast, but his touch is still ice cold. And sometimes, when we stand side by side in the mirror, I see his reflection, smiling not at me, but at the dark void behind me. I hadn't bought a man's love. I had bought a demon's haunting. And now, I must grow old with that haunting. Never forget, every spell cast for love is actually a black knot tied upon the soul. And no one can untie that knot. When I realized that the thing inside Mert hadn't left, but had only hidden deeper in his marrow and bone, it was too late. Our home had turned not into a nest, but a living tomb. Mert was beside me, but his soul was leagues away, chained at the bottom of that dark well. I had to save him, because I had summoned this disaster. When I lost Mother Mary's trail, I went after someone who knew ancient darkness, not a true healer. In the back streets of Istanbul, I found someone whose name was only mentioned in whispers. Blind Idris. The man had no eyes. Rumor had it they were taken by the entities because he looked to the other side too much. When I found him, he was living in the boiler room of an abandoned soap factory. When I took Mert there, he didn't resist at all. He followed me like a puppet. Idris struck his staff on the ground before we even entered. "What you brought is not a dead man, Elif," he said in a muffled voice. "What you brought is a shadow borrowed from a tribe. If you don't return that shadow to its owner, Mert's body will begin to rot before 40 days are up." And it was true. Mert's fingertips had begun to turn purple, and a pitch-black, pus-like liquid was seeping from under his nails. The smell was now undeniable. Blind Idris asked for 3 things for the ritual. Dot soil from the house where Mert was born, a lock of living hair I cut, and the ashes of the sealed talisman. But the 4th was the hardest. A voluntary sacrifice. "No one will die," Idris said, "but one of you must cross to the other side and lock the door from the inside. Who will dare?" I looked into Mert's empty pitch-black eyes. For a moment, I saw the real Mert there. A single bloody tear escaped his eye. "I will," he said, his voice echoing as if from thousands of years away. "I am already there." The ritual began at midnight, during the darkest phase of the moon. Idris drew a massive circle on the dust on the floor, not with chalk, but with charred bone fragments. Around the circle, he placed 7 dark-black candles. The flames of the candles burned, not yellow, but a cold color verging on purple. We sat Mert. In the very center of the circle, Idris applied that disgusting mixture he prepared in a copper bull blood soil, and ashed to Mert's forehead, palms and the soles of his feet. At that moment, the room began to shake. Screams were coming from the factory's rusty pipes. When Idris began to shout in that ancient language, Mert's body convulsed uncontrollably. I could clearly hear the dot sound of his bones snapping. Crack, crack, crack. Mert's mouth opened wider than a human could manage, and pitch-black, smoky arms and hands began to emerge from within. "Hold him, Elif!" Idris screamed. "Don't let go of his soul. His body is emptying." I hugged Mert. I cannot describe the burning on my skin at that moment. Mert's skin was frozen, but the smoke coming out of him burned my flesh like acid. I felt pieces of flesh tearing from my shoulders and dot arms, but I didn't let go. In that moment, I saw a vision. Mert's soul was kneeling and crying in a pitch-black room among thousands of entities. With sewn-shut mouths, the entity resisted leaving Mert's body. For a moment, Mert's face turned into an old woman's, then into a mangled animal's. "You wanted me?" The entity shrieked with my own voice. "We became one. Why are you vomiting me now?" Idris plunged a silver needle into Mert's tongue. At that moment, such a scream rose from within Mert that the building's windows shattered into dust. A pitch-black shadow tore away from Mert's body and hurled itself toward the ceiling. The shadow hung from the ceiling like a massive spider. It had dozens of arms and legs, and at the end of each, Mert's face appeared and vanished. "Now," Idris shouted. "Say his name. His true name, Mert." I screamed with all my might. "Mert, come back!" Close the door. At that moment, the shadow on the ceiling began to struggle. Mert's body collapsed, but the shadow was still there. Idris threw the copper bowl toward the shadow. The bowl exploded in midair, and the room was filled with an unbearable smell of sulfur. The dark shadow was sucked into that bone circle on the floor as if by a vacuum. The ground split open, and the room was plunged into pitch darkness. When I woke up, it was dawn. Blind Idris was gone. The factory was empty. Mert was lying beside me. He was breathing, but his face looked as if it had aged 100 years. His hair had turned pure white. We went home. Mert was no longer that thing. He started eating again, sleeping again, but something had not changed forever. Mert didn't laugh anymore. The spark of the man who was once in love with me was gone from his eyes. There was only a profound exhaustion and fear. One day, I looked at Mert's back. Those handprints were gone, but in their place were deep, permanent scars, as if he had been whipped. "I saw that place," Elif, he whispered one day. "The place you called me to. Thousands of people there are whispering your name. They're all waiting for the day you will go there too." The story's end was not a salvation. Yes, that demon is gone. Yes, Mert is no longer a shell, but I left half of the man I loved in that dark room. Mert no longer loves me. Every time he sees me, he remembers the hell I made him endure. We are now two strangers in the same house. Two wrecks, one silent from guilt, the other from fear. Last night when I woke up, I found Mert sitting on the edge of the bed. I startled in fear, but Mert was just crying. "Elif," he said. My reflection in the mirror still doesn't look at me. I am here, but my shadow is still at the bottom of that well. As his pained voice threw the evil I had done back in my face, I hugged him. A single tear fell from my eye. Every move you make to bind someone to you is actually digging your own grave. I could no longer look at the sea, nor at the mirror, because I know that once that seal was broken, those on the other side memorized my face. I am Elif, the woman who lost the man she loved while trying to save him, who left her soul in the boiler room of a soap factory for her love. And this story is not over. It is only waiting for its next victim.